Hey guys, it's Nick. Welcome to another episode of T-365. Today's episode, I'm going to be giving you guys a demonstration of both the bulk migration tool for GDAP coming from Microsoft, along with the migration tool created from the guys over at CIPP. If you guys have not checked out GDAP, please go take a look at my videos, which I'll link below here, which detail out the entire timeline for GDAP along with some of the high-level overview. Many of us have become aware of GDAP over the past month or so here just because of impending timelines that are coming from Microsoft to move into GDAP and also to take advantage of these tools like the bulk migration tool, which will only be available for a limited period of time. Currently, they've just shifted that date to the end of November. Previously was the end of October, which is why a lot of MSPs are rapidly getting acclimated to GDAP at this point in time. So again, I'm going to be demonstrating both tools today, showing you the pros and cons of each. As always, if this content's helpful, go ahead and like and subscribe if you guys want to see more content around Microsoft and the MSP space. Let's go ahead and dive in. So first, let's go through the steps of the GDAP bulk migration tool. I'm widely going to be using the support article that I'll link below in the video to walk through all of the steps here. As you'll see, it's kind of cumbersome and it's a little bit confusing as well too, just from all the steps that we have to do, but let's go ahead and dive in. So prerequisites here, you have to have a global admin that's a MFA enabled admin within your partner center environment to be able to run these commands. Just make sure you're going to be doing that within the environment. You have to download the .NET 6.0 SDK if you don't have it already. So I'm here and I'm just going to install the 64-bit version. This will take a minute to load, so we'll wait for that to go ahead and download. And then the other thing we need to do here is download the bulk migration tool source from GitHub. So we'll go there and we'll go up to the code section and click download zip. That'll populate into our downloads folder here, as we can see. And what you'll want to do is just copy it out and put it into basically a secure location, I would, or even maybe if you're just going to play around with it for demo purposes on your desktop. The other thing that we need to do here is we need to onboard the GDAP Enterprise App ID to be able to access the APIs that we're going to use for the bulk migration tool. So we can click on List Delegated Admin Customers of a Partner to get those steps, but essentially here, you want to follow the PowerShell steps in order to create this service principal. I'm not going to walk through that just because you should know how to use PowerShell here. I'm assuming you do within this video. It's simple. You connect to Azure AD with the global admin credentials, and you go in and you establish this new service principal, which is the Partner Customer Delegated Administration display name. And then from there, you can follow these steps to create an app registration if you do not already have one within your environment. A lot of you, if you're using things like CIPP or other custom scripts in the environment to access all of your customers, you likely have already created one of these. But these steps will show you how to do that. And again, I'm not going to walk through that for the sake of time. Just want to focus on the bulk migration tool. But essentially, I'll pivot into Azure AD to show you where to add that service principal. So I'm going under the app registration section here in the Azure AD portal for my tenant. I have multiple apps here just for examples, but I have one here called Delegated Access. And within there, I'm going to go under the API permission section. I'm going to go ahead and add a permission, and I'm going to go under APIs my organization uses. I'm going to search for partner. And here I'll have the service principal that I just created, which is the Partner Customer Delegated Administration. I'll click under Delegated Permissions, and you'll want to add the permission here that you see. I've already done it for the purposes of this video, but you'll click on Add Permissions down at the bottom, and then you'll grant consent for your company there as well. So you'll establish that, and it'll hit yes, and it'll approve that application down below here as far as granting you those rights to actually run this within the tenant. So our .NET executable has finished downloading. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up here as well too, as far as our prerequisites go. Just going to go ahead and install. Okay, that's done installing now, so I'm going to pivot back to the instructions. And so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start to run this within the command prompt. So I'll go ahead and start that. And then here we're going to traverse into the folder that we have within our desktop Okay, so I've done that here, and I have the folder path that I put as far as the desktop, and then I went into the GBM folder as well too, like it shows in the instructions. And then what you do from here is you do the .NET run, and you actually have to spell it correctly. So this will load up here, so just take a minute for you to actually see what you see in the example in the tutorial. And then what it's going to do is prompt you to authenticate. This is where you'll need that global admin that has MFA enabled here, and we'll get prompted here to authenticate. This is done now, so we can pivot back to the command prompt. And now we see like what we see in the tutorial, the learning doc. So I'm going to hit the CSV section. This gives you the ability to traverse the various operations. And so what we want to do here is download a couple of the lists. So number one is what we're going to select here. It's going to basically pump out all of our customers into a CSV with all their tenant IDs and things like that. We're going to download number 3, which is the example Azure AD roles. And I'll show you how to get more here in a second. And then what we'll also need is our security groups within our own environment here as well too, which you can use to then assign the various GDAP roles that we're going to do as part of the bulk migration. So just a heads up here, this does require some other prerequisites in the sense of your own planning as far as what GDAP Azure AD roles that you're going to select for these relationships, along with what security groups you're going to enable as well too. Definitely check out my documentation as far as the overall structure for GDAP and how you maybe want to partition this so you have a firm understanding of how you're going to roll this out. I'll be doing a separate video just kind of showcasing what we did internally to showcase the various groups that we're using in the additional security controls like PIM enabled access on those groups for additional security, and also auditing when we have other privileged roles that our technicians are getting access into on a periodic basis. So now that I downloaded that, I can go into the GBM section here and I can go under GDAP bulk migration folder. This is where my downloads and operations is going to be. So you'll basically want to go through here, and we're going to want to save all of these files under the operations section, because this is what the other operations here are going to look for, and it'll tell you that if you haven't had them pumped in already or you have them open, it'll give you an error message. But essentially here we're going to decide what customers we want to migrate, what roles we want to give them to in a bulk operation. So I'll go under the customer section here first. This is going to have a list of all your customers. I have them grayed out just for purposes of security, and also your partner tenant. But this is the format that you're going to use to upload and establish new GDAP relationships. So the name section here is where you're going to define the particular nomenclature for the actual GDAP relationship name that you want to establish within all of these tenants. So in my case, I recommended using a similar nomenclature like MSA and then the tenant name. And so you can do that here by just establishing that and just going across all of your customers and mimicking that just with the names. You can use whatever you want though. You can call a relationship name whatever you want, or you could use a GUID, random GUID for each one. The key part is that none of these should be duplicated in the sense that you can't use the same name twice. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to clean this up to only use one customer tenant as far as my example. But again, you can use the bulk operation. Just note that when we use the bulk migration tool, we're going to establish these customer relationships, and then we're going to assign the Azure AD roles across all of those tenants. So just note that you could partition this in the sense of having 3 customers that get these certain Azure AD relationships, but then these other 3 customers you want establish more GDAP relationships for, and you'd use 2 separate operations to do that. That'll become a little bit more clear once I'm going through the actual process of doing that in the bulk migration tool. The other thing that I want to do here is set the duration for the relationship as well too. Some of you may want to put 730, which is the 2-year limit. It's just what gets created by default. Others, if you want to do it shorter, you could put any time frame here as far as the days of this particular relationship as well. Okay, so I've cleaned up my list here. I'm just going to do one customer for the sake of the demo here. But what you want to do is go into File, Save As, and then you're going to select here again the operations folder, and you're going to save the customer CSV as is here without changing the name, because that's what it's going to look for within the bulk migration tool. Next here, we're going to select our Azure AD roles, and this gives us a couple here as far as examples go, but you'll want to add all of the Azure AD roles that you want to have for the particular customer and the GDAP relationships that you're going to establish here. So within the guide here, you have this link to Azure AD built-in roles. And this is going to be what you want to use to copy and paste the various roles in which you want to establish within these customer relationships. And so in my particular case, I'm going to go ahead and use the application administrator. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to come over and I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to remove the Dynamics administrator because I don't need that one in my environment. I'm going to grab the description. And I'm going to grab the template ID. And so that's all you need to do, and you just need to keep doing this for every single relationship that you want to establish for the customers that you established in the previous CSV. Okay, I just have 3 here just for the sake of simplicity, but you're obviously probably going to have more depending on what you want to do here. So again, same as last time, we want to go ahead and save as, go into our folder structure, come back out into the operations folder and save it here as is without changing the name. And that's everything we need to do for our Azure AD roles. Lastly here, we need to go ahead and grab our security groups. And again, I've grayed this out just for the sake of security and confidentiality when it comes to the display names of the groups that I have here. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to paste in comma separated values as far as what roles we're going to assign for each group within our organization. Meaning, back into our Azure AD roles here, we want to grab the IDs that we want to apply for these particular groups, in the sense of I'm going to apply the Exchange Administrator role to the Azure admins or the admin agent group, and I'm going to apply the Help Desk and Application Administrator roles to Security Group 2, whatever you want to have as far as that goes. So again, this takes the prerequisites of understanding what groups you're going to use for the partitioning of all the Azure AD roles across your GDAP relationships. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up again just to use the group that I want, or the groups that I want for this particular example. Okay, so I've done here, I have my ID here of the admin agent group, and it's assigned 2 roles, comma separated here for the Help Desk Administrator and the Exchange Administrator role that I grabbed again from the Azure AD CSV. And I also have the Application Administrator role assigned to the Azure admins as a security group within my environment, which has this particular ID. So same as always here, you're getting used to this process. We're going to go ahead and save as. We're going into the folder for operations, and we're going to save it as is without changing the name. So after you're done here and have all that, you want to close out all the CSV folders that you have open, or files I should say, because otherwise you'll get an error when you try to run the tool. Okay, so back in the tool here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a GDAP relationship, and so we're just going to select number 7. And there are 3 roles pre-configured. It's reading those files that we had modified there in the operations section. So we're just going to hit yes here, and it's going to establish the new relationship. So it has that. It has the MSA testing 3, and it has added those within our environment. So now that that's been created, we can go under this section here, which is the operations section under GDAP relationships, and we can open up this CSV file. And we can see that our GDAP relationship was created. We can see our duration here. We can see it's in an improved status or approved status here. And we can see all the timestamps as well too. I'm also able to see this in Partner Center under the Administer section of the Customers section within Partner Center. And I can click on this particular customer, and I can see that active admin relationship as well too, with the end date that I've established through the duration. Now this isn't the final step. Obviously we need to assign this to some security groups as well too. We haven't done that. Again, you can do this programmatically with the CSVs we've created. So here we're going to select number 9. And again, I get a little error because I have this file open, so I can close that down. And I'm going to use the 2 security groups that I established and hit yes. So that's been established. I can go under here to the operations section access assignment and click on that. And I've had this come up here. This is something I've had to troubleshoot as well too. Nothing actually appears here as well. So what you can do to troubleshoot is, number 1, going back into your CSVs here. What I'm going to do is go under the security group section, And some troubleshooting steps you could take here is to put this into quotations and save it and try to rerun here. And we'll go back to our access assignment. And I still have it here. So one other thing I found to do is go ahead and download the existing GDAP relationships. So number 5. And then we'll go into the download section, grab this guy. You can see all my existing GDAP relationships, and again, there's more here because I've been doing multiple pieces of testing. I like to grab the record that I have here, or all the records in your case, if you're just doing this on your own, for what we need here as far as the GDAP relationship. Then I go back into operations, I select GDAP relationship here, and I just paste over the values that are in this particular CSV. So it funnels everything, and I save that here, and then I close out. And then I'll go ahead and run number 9 again, which is our security groups. Hit yes. And then it gives me this please check input setup for GDAP relationships and security group configuration. So it established one of my relationships here. I can go back to operations, click on access assignment, and I can see that this guy failed and this guy's in a pending status. So likely what I'll need to do now is go back and clean up my folder here, or my file for security groups. And in here, I'll just need to remove these quotation marks. And I'll save that and exit out of this. And again, one more time, just going to number 9. So it already recognized that we had the one assignment that already exists, and it created our other assignment there. We just had to remove those quotations. So one of the other operations that you can use here is number 10 to refresh the security role group assignment status. This will take about 2 minutes in some cases. If Microsoft's API is not working really quickly, it might take longer. So what I recommend is usually to try within the first couple minutes, and if it's not responding, you don't get any update in status, take an hour break, come back, because honestly you'll just waste your time in looking for the relationship status to change. So we'll go under the access assignment here. So we can see that the first one's active here, and we'll just need to wait another minute here to see the other one. If we go into Partner Center now and we refresh the page, we can see our 2 security groups here that were part of the assignment. And I can scroll under and I can see the Help Desk Administrator, Exchange Administrator, and under Admin Agents, I can see the Application Administrator roles have been successfully assigned. So that's the basis of the tool here. Again, it's not exactly user-friendly in the sense of a normal user, but as you can see here, I just manipulated some CSVs and I was able to run this there. There's only that one weird bug where I have to go back in and paste in the different value into the GDAP relationship file to get it to run for the security roles. But overall, you can see that you can run through this and actually establish one-to-many customer relationships, and in addition, assign them all to certain security groups in bulk to get this completed. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how this looks within the CIPP portal. I'm here and I went under settings to the GDAP section and I clicked on Migration Wizard. I'm at this first step here where I need to enable the GDAP API. So you need to be a global admin in order to do this. So go ahead and click on this button here. Now I'm getting this error message because I already added this before the bulk migration wizard. So this makes sense, but I'm going to go ahead and pop into the service principal again just to show you what that looks like. Okay, I'm here for the app registration we have for CIPP. I'm going to go under the API permission section here. And then underneath, I'm going to go ahead and add a permission. I'm going to go under APIs my organization uses. And I'm going to search for the partner one. And it's the partner customer delegated administration here. I'm going to go under delegated permissions. And then I'm going to go ahead and just select both here and click on add permissions. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on grant. And what I do here, I'll get the success message up at the top. And then if I scroll down to the bottom here, I can see the customer delegation here as well that I've added. And so that's all the permissions I need to set up for the app registration. Back in CIPP, I'm going to go ahead and click on next. This is where I get to select my tenants as well too. I have them grayed out here just because of the security for my own environment here, but you'll have a list of all your tenants and their default domains. I'm going to go ahead and use one as an example. In your use case, it's likely you're going to select one to many, as in all of the tenants you want to establish a GDAP relationship on, or at least the ones that you want to establish certain GDAP relationships with, which we'll see in the next section. So I'll go ahead and select a tenant here, and then I'll scroll down and I'll click on next. So on step 3 here, this is where we're selecting the roles or the GDAP relationships. And just like before, you'll want to do your research on which roles you're going to need within your own environment. But as you can see, it's a little different here with CIPP, where you get to select roles, but with each role that you create, a new group will be created with the nomenclature of M365 GDAP and then the role name. And then you can add your users to that group afterwards. By default, also, the maximum duration is set for 730 days. There's no way to change that like you can with the bulk migration tool. But again, most of us are going to want to set it at 730 days there too, so that we only have to do the reestablishment every 2 years. So again, just for the purposes of the demo here, I'm just going to select a few roles that I want to have within the environment just to set this up. So I'll do the application administrator, I'll do the exchange administrator, and I'll also do the help desk administrator. I'll go ahead and click on next. So this is what we have as far as our roles and our tenants as a summary, and then I'll go ahead and submit. So now I get a confirmation here. We started the GDAP migration for, and then S customer name is appended onto that. You'll have multiple customers here if you add more than one. Again, just doing that for the example. If you go under the GDAP migration status, you'll have the environment here that you just created as far as the designated migration, and you'll have the tenant name, the status, and the migration timestamp as well too. In my experience, this took about 2 minutes to go into a completed status, so just refresh the page there, and I can see that it is in a migration complete status. From my experience though, Microsoft's APIs have been a little bit wonky lately in the sense of them actually working and being timely. So I did this at a time where I saw that the APIs were running as fast as possible, in the sense that I went into Partner Center and I could look at different various GDAP relationships, and it wasn't taking 5 minutes to load the page. So that's a good indicator, and it's an unfortunate thing that we have to look out for right now. But if this is taking longer, if you're getting any errors, it's most likely that it's Microsoft's APIs that are causing the 504 errors you might be seeing or anything like that from this tenant. So to check the work that has been done programmatically here, I went into the group section of AD, and I can see that those 3 groups were created here as well. And again, if you're doing this and doing it across multiple customers, you won't have multiple groups of the same name in that sense. So you always have one for each of the roles that you're going to create. And then in Partner Center, I can see the customer that I established a GDAP relationship with under the Administer section here for customers. And then I can click into them there to see the admin relationship that was created. And I can see underneath it the 3 Azure AD roles that were part of it that I selected as well, with the end date being the 730 days out for the expiration. So pretty straightforward there on the actual migration. This worked pretty smooth just because, again, Microsoft's APIs were working pretty well at the time of this recording. Lastly, I can see here when I click into the actual GDAP relationship, I can actually see all the security groups that were established, and each one has the applicable Azure AD role. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to showcase for you guys in today's video. Hopefully that provided some good insights into both the bulk migration tool from Microsoft along with the migration tool from CIPP. In my opinion, there's pros and cons to both sides here. The CIPP is obviously way more user-friendly and intuitive of an experience where you can walk through the wizard to select your customers, your relationships, and have that set up behind the scenes. Whereas the bulk migration tool is very much clunky in the sense of you having to download the .NET framework, use the command prompt, and modify CSVs to get done what you want to do as far as the transition to GDAP. On the other hand, the bulk migration tool does give you a little bit more flexibility to do certain things like create your own naming conventions and set your durations, along with the ability to modify just certain administrative groups that you want to have access, whereas with CIPP, it's one per permission. So pros and cons to both. I'd recommend using CIPP if you're already on that platform. And additionally, if you don't want to spend as much time looking through all of that for the initial transition because of the timelines, because of everything else you might have going on. But again, hopefully this video showed you some insights into potentially making both a little bit easier of a process. Stay tuned for my next video where we're actually going to be walking through the process that our company took through deciding what GDAP roles to assign in customer tenants and what groups and levels of security we want to have around those as well. As I mentioned earlier, if you guys want to see more content around Microsoft and the MSP space, be sure to subscribe. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.